So a big welcome to you all. It's a pleasure to have you here with us for the launch of our latest report from Smoke Free Sweden called Power in a Pouch, Innovation Sealing Sweden's Smoke-Free Success. But before I dive into the report and the survey findings, which we've published today, I'm going to give you a bit of background and context. So for 2 years, Smoke Free Sweden has been sharing Sweden's world-leading harm reduction success with policymakers and public health experts worldwide. Founded by advocates for pragmatic public health policies, we've had one clear mission: to highlight Sweden's extraordinary achievement as it prepares to become the world's first officially smoke-free nation. Let me be clear about what this means. Sweden is on track to achieve smoking rates below 5%, the official definition of smoke-free status. This isn't a theoretical goal or a distant aspiration. This is happening now, way ahead of the EU target date of 2040. And it's happening because of evidence-based policies that do work. But here's what makes Sweden's story truly remarkable. This success wasn't achieved through bans, harsh restrictions, or punitive measures. Instead, Sweden chose a pragmatic, evidence-based approach that made safer alternatives to cigarettes more acceptable, affordable, and available for adults who smoke. The results speak for themselves. Sweden's male lung cancer death rate is now 61% lower than the EU average, and total cancer deaths are 34% lower. So you can see the Swedish smoking rate here, 5.3%, Swedish adults, and then we have the average EU smoking rate, which is 24%, which is a stark difference. Then this graph here shows the total male lung cancer rates per 100,000 in Europe. We have Sweden here in yellow off the far left, with all the other EU countries lagging behind Sweden. And the same with here, we have the total male cancer rates per 100,000 in Europe. Again, Sweden is far outpacing the other countries in the European Union. So meanwhile, the EU average smoking rate remains at 24%, which is 5 times higher than Sweden's, which you could see. And most other member states are set to miss the 2040 deadline by a distance. Sweden has provided us with a roadmap that could save 355,000 lives annually across the European Union, and that's 3.5 million lives over the next decade. The question isn't whether Sweden's approach works. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is whether the rest of Europe will learn from this success or continue down a path that protects cigarettes over safer alternatives. So today, we're launching groundbreaking new research that reveals the final piece of Sweden's smoke-free puzzle: modern oral nicotine pouches. Our comprehensive analysis demonstrates that these products, introduced in Sweden in 2016, have been the catalyst that accelerated Sweden's journey to smoke-free status. But most importantly, they helped to solve a problem that had persisted for decades: how to help women quit smoking. Sweden's harm reduction efforts, particularly snus, had successfully helped men quit smoking for years, but female smoking rates remained stubbornly high. Women found traditional smokeless products unappealing, citing concerns about aesthetics, social stigma, and lifestyle compatibility, until modern nicotine pouches emerged. The data is stunning. Since 2016, smoking among Swedish women has dropped by 49%, from 11.2% to just 5.7% today. This represents an almost 200% increase in the female quit rate, dramatically outpacing male progress for the first time in decades. Our national survey of 892 ex-smokers revealed why this happens. Swedish women ranked nicotine pouches as the most effective quit method, almost 3 times higher than vapes and 56% higher than nicotine gum. When we asked why, the answers were clear. Pouches are clean, stigma-free, and socially considerate. And here are some of the quotes from some of the respondents. For example, I didn't want to come home and smell like smoke in front of my child. That's when nicotine pouches started to make sense. I've tried the gum, I've tried the patches. Nicotine pouches just worked better, felt more normal. I can use them anywhere, at brunch, in the office, on a train. No one sees, no one smells, no one minds. This isn't just about convenience, it's about respect. 60% of women cited The variety of flavours as their top reason for choosing pouches, while 47% highlighted that they're tobacco-free and perceived as less harmful. The science supports their instincts. Research shows nicotine pouches are the safest nicotine delivery method available. They contain no tobacco, they avoid lung exposure, and have a chemical composition similar to WHO-approved nicotine replacement therapy products. Multiple studies confirm they contain dramatically fewer harmful chemicals than all other nicotine products. Perhaps most telling is the emotional investment women have in these products. 1 in 3 women said if a regulatory environment emerged where their preferred nicotine pouches were no longer available, they would seek them out elsewhere, rather than switch to a different method. 16% said they might even restart smoking if pouches were not available. This is what effective public health policy looks like. When you give people products that meet their needs, respect their preferences, and fit their lifestyles, they make healthier choices. And Sweden proved that this works. But instead of learning from Sweden's success, we're witnessing a dangerous trend across Europe. Countries are restricting or even banning the very products that have been most effective for women. Spain has already banned nicotine pouches, and France is following suit. The Swedish government has been forced to issue formal warnings to the European Commission, stating that these bans will undermine proven harm reduction strategies. This wave of restrictions has become the single biggest obstacle to achieving smoke-free status in Europe. Our survey confirms this. An overwhelming majority of users agreed that new bans or restrictions on nicotine pouches are probably the single biggest obstacle to achieving smoke-free status in Europe and the wider world. We are at a fork in the road for tobacco control worldwide. Over the next 18 months, the EU's revision of the Tobacco Products Directive could impose severe new restrictions on nicotine pouches across Europe. This would be a public health disaster. If these bans succeed, they will lock millions of smokers, especially women, into cigarette use. They will block other countries from replicating Sweden's success. They will write off the EU's smoke-free 2040 target as an unrealistic dream. The stakes could not be higher. Every day of delay means more preventable deaths. Every restriction on safe alternatives is a victory for the cigarette industry. So what must we do? There's 3 urgent actions. First, address the female smoking challenge. Recognise that one-size-fits-all approaches have failed. Countries serious about smoke-free status need products that respect women's preferences and daily realities. Second, embrace flavour diversity as a public health tool. The data shows that diverse tobacco-free flavours directly correlate with quitting success. Removing this element would undermine the very mechanism driving Sweden's progress. Third, act with urgency to capitalise on proven solutions. Sweden's 49% reduction in female smoking rates since 2016 proves that countries don't need to wait decades for change. They can achieve dramatic results within a single policy cycle. The world no longer needs theoretical debates about how to beat smoking. Sweden has provided the blueprint. The data is in, the tools are available, and the path is clear. The only question that remains is, will Europe learn from Sweden's success? Or will it choose a path that protects cigarettes over the alternatives that could save millions of lives? Thank you very much.